Today's class is a posture flow. We're going to be moving through a yoga flow, focusing on common posture areas that need a little bit of work. So we're going to be working on opening the chest, strengthening the shoulders and the shoulder blades, working on that neutral pelvis, and holding the spine neutral as we move. So we'll start on our back, checking that triple S. Back of the skull, shoulder blades, and sacrum are on the mat. So already that might feel a little bit challenging if you tend to tip the pelvis a lot or flare the ribs. So we're really working on holding that triple S down. Go ahead and bring your hands to your pelvic points. Before we lift up for bridge, we're going to do some pelvic tilts, which means we're going to purposely tip the pelvis forward and back. So as we tip the pelvis forward, it's like you're lifting your low back off the ground so you get that arch or space between the low back and the mat. And then we're going to try to tip the pelvis backwards as if we're almost lifting the tailbone up, pressing that sacrum down into the mat. So do that a few times. Tilt the pelvis forward so the low back lifts. Tilt the pelvis backwards like we're about to lift up for bridge. So we want to rock back and forth and really learn the difference between what it feels like when the pelvis tips forward and backward so we can really find that happy medium. Hold that neutral so the sacrum is down, shoulder blades are down, back of the skull. You can keep your hands at those pelvic points. Lift up for bridge. So we're going to squeeze the glutes. Hold that feeling of the pelvis staying neutral as you lift up. So as we lift for this low bridge, we don't want to tip forward here, letting the low back arch. So we want the low back to stay long. Feel like those two pelvic points are trying to draw in toward each other. And then think about lifting your pubic bone at the front of your pelvis up towards your belly and really squeeze the glutes. Holding here, keep your chin towards your throat. So we're really working on this neutral pelvis, getting it in the brain so that when we move, we know what a neutral pelvis feels like. Keep that squeeze in your glutes. Slowly lower your upper back, middle back, and lower back down. Once the sacrum comes down, we'll interlace the hands behind the head. Draw the elbows in. Now here's another place we really want to check that the sacrum is down. So again, if there's any lift in your low back, like when we were tipping the pelvis forward, press the sacrum down right above the tailbone. Big inhale here. Exhale, lift up. It's a tiny lift. We're just lifting off the shoulder blades, not further than the shoulder blades. Tuck your chin towards your throat. Now, without lowering back down, think about leaning your head back into your hands, but staying lifted off the shoulder blades. Look at those two pelvic points, just like bridge pose. Try to draw those two pelvic points in. Inhale to lower. Exhale as you lift. Try to empty that exhale. Chin towards your throat. Look at those pelvic points. Try to draw them in toward each other. Now try to knit your front ribs in. Inhale to lower. Exhale as you lift. Chin towards your throat. Again, try to lean your head back into your hands without lowering onto the shoulder blades. Look at the belly button now. Imagine that your belly button could pull down toward the mat or to the ground. Inhale to lower. Exhale as you lift. Chin towards your throat. Draw those pelvic points in. Press the sacrum down. Pull the belly button down. Inhale to lower. Make your way into a quadruped. We'll come onto hands and knees, moving through a little bit of cat-cow. Shoulders line up right over your wrist creases. Stretch out your back. So now the pelvis can tip forward and back. So just like when we were on our back, really start to pay attention to what it feels like when the pelvis tips forward and when the pelvis tips backwards, so that we can find that in-between place of being neutral. Come back to that neutral spine, lift your throat, draw those pelvic points in, tuck your toes under, lift up for down dog. So you can walk the hands back a little bit more, shortening your stance, keep a big bend in the knees, and think about lifting your hip creases up toward the ceiling, and then think about lifting your front ribs up toward the back of the body. so that we're not sinking the chest through the hands. We want the arms to feel really strong, and we want this upward lift, as if everything could lift up toward the pelvis. Walk your hands back towards your feet. Keep a big bend in the knees. Heels will lower down. Now we want to check our posture here. Our ankles are flexed, our knees are flexed, and our hips are flexed. We've got this feeling of the broom behind the back, so I don't want you to round your back and drop the head. Really hold that core active. Use your glutes to hold yourself in this hip hinge or hip flexion. Keep squeezing your glutes as you rise to stand, thinking about a broom being behind your back so that we keep it nice and long. Walk to the top of your mat. Let's check our posture. Hold that pelvic bowl upright. We're going to do something called check our plumb line. So we're going to stand and bring our fingers in our ears and then draw your elbows back as far as you can without popping the ribs. Hold your shoulders where they are and lower down. So we'll try that again. I'll face this way. You're going to put your fingers in your ears, draw your elbows back without popping the ribs. So knit those front ribs in, hold that pelvic bowl upright. Without rounding your upper back, lower your arms to your side. So our plumb line lines up from the center of the ear, center of the shoulder, center of the hip, center of the knee, all the way down to the ankle. So you can really imagine it like this straight line through the side of the body, and we'll try to keep that feeling as we flow. Reach the arms forward and up, glide the shoulder blades up. Exhale, hinge. So think about that triple flexion, ankles, knees, and hips. Broom behind your back, shoulders over the wrists. Step to plank pose. You can have knees up or down in plank. Think about that broom behind your back. Would it touch the back of your skull, shoulder blades, and sacrum? Squeeze your glutes. Lift the pubic bone toward the belly. Lower your knees, untuck the toes. Pause here. Make sure we're not tipping forward, tipping back. Really hold that neutral pelvis. Lower down with control without your shoulders rolling forward. So as we lower, work on keeping the head of your arm bones lifted so they don't drop forward. We're going to bring the head down. Forehead will come onto the mat, and we'll bring the arms up overhead like we're making a letter V. Palms face each other and thumbs point up. So the forehead will rest down. You're going to lift your low belly, kind of like when we were on our back doing our core work and I said, imagine drawing your belly button down toward the ground. Now I want you to think about lifting your belly button up towards your low back. Squeeze your glutes. We'll keep the head down. Try to lift your arms up any amount. They might not go very far, but that's okay. Lower down. Keep that lift in the belly. Squeeze the glutes. Lift the arms any amount. Lower down, keep that neutral neck, chin towards your throat. One more. Lift the arms. Lower down. Hands come under your shoulders. Tuck the toes, lift to quadruped. Right foot will step through your hands, low lunge. Lift up. Check that upright pelvis. So again, make sure it's not tipping forward or back. You can check that plumb line here. Fingers to your ears, draw the elbows back, keep the shoulders here, lower the hands. Check that plumb line, ear, shoulder, hip, knee. Bring your arms to a goal post shape. So our elbows are bent, elbows are coming right out of the shoulder, so try not to have them too low. Chin towards your throat, squeeze this left glute. We're gonna retract our shoulder blades. So we're gonna squeeze those shoulder blades in toward each other, and then back to where they were. So our forearms draw back, but only because our shoulder blades are squeezing in. Make sure the movement is just happening in the upper back, so not popping the ribs. Hold everything in the front body really still, and just squeeze those shoulder blades in. So we're working the back body while we open or stretch the front of the body, and most of us tend to be pretty tight in the front of the shoulders and the chest because we let our shoulders round forward with our posture, which chronically shortens the muscles around the front of the shoulder and chest. So we'll try to work to undo that as much as possible. Good, you can remove that goalpost shape. Your left hand is gonna come over toward that right thigh. Right arm will reach forward. We're gonna do some thoracic rotation, which means just the ribs move, nothing in the lower body. So really hold everything in that neutral position. And we're gonna circle this right arm up, turning only in the ribs, not the pelvis, as we circle it back any amount, and keep circling. Go as slowly as you'd like. This left glute is really squeezing. We're drawing those pelvic points in, and again, any of this movement is just happening in the ribs and above. Undo that thoracic twist, bring the hands back down, step it back to quadruped. Left foot will step through, low lunge. Lift up, check that pelvic bowl. Let's maybe check the plumb line, fingers to the ears. Draw the elbows back without popping the ribs. Knit those front ribs in, keep the shoulders where they are, lower the hands down. Squeeze that right glute. Lift the pubic bone up toward the belly so you've got neutral pelvis, neutral spine, goalpost the arms. Good, without letting the pelvis move or the ribs move, you're gonna squeeze the shoulder blades together and just pulse here. So it might not be a big movement. It might not feel like they move at all. That's okay. Our shoulder blades are one of those areas that unless somebody asks you to move it like I do, it's probably not something you pay much attention to. But our shoulder blades are really important for the movement of our shoulders, and especially any type of overhead reaching. Good, release those goalpost arms. Right hand will come toward that left thigh. Left arm is gonna reach forward. Now again, we don't wanna move in the lower body at all, so really squeeze that right glute. Hold some tone in the core. Circle this left arm without moving the pelvis or the lower body. So we're just adding a little bit of that rotation in the thoracic spine, which is where our ribs are. Circling as slowly as you'd like. Release it down, bring the hands down, step that left foot back in. If you'd like, you can stretch it out in cat-cow, or you can lift up for downward dog. If you're in downward dog, let the head relax, lift your hip creases up toward the ceiling, lift your front ribs up toward the back of your body. If you want, you can pedal the feet out. Bend your knees, walk your feet towards your hands this time. Keep a big bend in both knees so that you can really hinge at your hips, imagining that broom behind your back. So we don't want to let the head drop. Press into the feet, rise to stand. Shoulder blades glide up toward the ears. Exhale, hinge. So we want to move the hips back so the belly or the torso can get closer toward the thighs. Shoulders over your wrists, step back to plank pose. Lift your throat. Think about that broom behind your back. Zipper the pubic bone up. Squeeze your glutes. Lower your knees. Pause here. You can untuck the toes. Draw those pelvic points in. Work on lowering slowly, not letting the shoulders roll forward. Good, chest comes down without the shoulders dropping. Head will come down. So lie on your forehead, reach the arms out like a V, palms face each other, thumbs up. Lift your belly. We want to keep that low belly nice and engaged so we don't arch the back. So really try to keep your pubic bone down on the mat. Lift your arms up any amount. Lower down. Lift those V arms up. Lower down. One more. Lift your V arms up. Lower down. Hands come back under the shoulders and pause here. Keep those shoulders lifting away from the ground so they don't drop forward. And from here we'll lift to quadruped. Back to hands and knees. Right foot steps through. Tuck your left toes if that feels good. Lift up, low lunge. Check that pelvic bowl. Make sure it's not tipping forward, tipping backwards. and really feel like you're trying to wrap this left glute down toward the heel. So the more we really firm this left glute, the more of a stretch we'll get in that left hip, hip flexor. Hands are gonna dangle, and we'll roll the shoulders back one at a time. So similar to those circles we just did, you can move the ribs a little side to side as we circle the shoulders, but try not to have any movement in the pelvis. So we still want to keep that tone in the core, in the glutes. Freeing up some of that tissue between the shoulder blades and the upper back. Lower the hands. Shoulders will come right over your wrist creases. You can untuck the left toes. We're going to slide this right leg back for a three-legged quadruped. Now lift your throat. Think about that broom behind your back. So we don't want anything feeling like it's sinking or dropping down. We want to lift. Lifting the pubic bone toward the belly. You can reach that left arm forward, but you don't have to. We're going to focus on the right hip. So you're going to bend the knee and try to bring the thigh toward the belly without rounding anywhere. So we're not going to round the back here. We're going to keep that long spine and then kick it back out. Right knee toward the belly, so both hands are welcome to stay down, or extend that left arm out, but we're not going to round the back. So we're working on thigh toward the belly, flexing that right hip, and then extending that right hip if it comes back. One more. Flex the right hip, knee toward the belly. Extend that right hip without rounding the back. Lower it down. Left foot steps through. Tuck the right toes if that feels good. Lift up. Check that feeling of your triple S being in alignment. No. Think about that broom touching the back of your skull, your shoulder blades, and your sacrum. Wrap that right glute down toward the heel. Arms are going to hang. And again, we'll roll the shoulders back one at a time. We want to roll backwards instead of forwards for that same reason that we open the chest. We don't want to practice that closing off of the chest. We want to roll backwards so that we get that opening in the front of the chest and shoulders. Lower your hands down, three-legged quadruped. Untuck the right toes. Slide your left leg back. Lift your throat. Think about that broom behind your back. Make sure we're not tipping the pelvis here, so really lift the pubic bone up toward the belly. Both hands can stay down or reach that right arm out, but we're not going to bend this right arm. We're going to hold it out. So we'll bring the left knee toward the belly without rounding the upper back or tipping the pelvis. And then extend it back out. Drawing those pelvic points in. So you're just going to work that hip flexion, the ability to get the belly toward the thigh, and then extend it back out. So left hip flexes when the knee comes toward the belly. Left hip extends when it kicks back out. One more. Knee toward the belly. Keep the core strong. Extend it back out. Release it down. Either stretch it out with cat-cow or take downward dog. Check in with your breath. Bend your knees, walk your feet forward. Hinge at your hips. Try to get your belly towards your thigh, keeping the knees over the ankles. Use your glutes as you rise to stand with that long spine. Shoulder blades glide up toward the ears. Exhale, hinge. Same thing, belly toward the thighs. Shoulders over your wrists, step to plank. Knees can be up or down in plank. Lift your throat, zipper the pubic bone up toward the belly. Draw those pelvic points in. Lower your knees, untuck the toes. Keep squeezing the glutes. Lower the rest of the body in one piece. Try to keep the shoulders away from the ground. Head will come down. Have your forehead down. V arms. Palms face each other. Thumbs up. Now try to lift your belly button away from the ground by pulling it up toward the low back. So the low back stays nice and long. We're gonna squeeze the glutes, press that pubic bone down, lift just the arms, lower down. Lift just the arms, keep that low belly lifting, lower down. Lift the arms, lower down. Hands come back under the shoulders. Pause, check where the shoulders are. Make sure they're not dropping forward. Lift to quadruped. Right foot steps through. We're gonna come to high lunge this time. Tuck the toes. Lift that left knee up, but keep it bent. We're gonna lift up, high lunge, checking that pelvic bowl. Let's check that plumb line here. So as you bend the left knee, fingers come to the ears, draw the elbows back, knit those front ribs in, hold everything in place, lower the hands. Good. So that can help making sure the head's not dropping, ribs aren't popping, pelvis isn't tipping, so we got that neutral everything. Reach the arms up. Lift your shoulder blades up. Keep wrapping this left glute down toward the heel. Right hand will come to the sacrum, right at the low back. Keep lifting this left scapula up. And we're gonna do some side bend pulses here. So we'll side bend to the right, come back up, side bend to the right, come back up, side bend to the right, come back up. One more, side bend to the right. Come back up, lower that left hand. We're gonna turn toward the side of the mat, open out for a squat. Check that pelvic bowl here, so we don't wanna tip forward or back. Think about that broom behind your back. We're gonna make a fist, reach the arms forward. Holding your squat, pull your elbows back, squeeze the shoulder blades together, again, without popping the ribs, and then arms come forward. So we're gonna hold the squat, retract the shoulder blades as you draw the elbows back. Fists come forward, 2 more. Elbows pull back, squeeze those shoulder blades in, knit the front ribs in. Fists come forward, 1 more. Pull the elbows back, squeeze and retract those shoulder blades, zipper the pubic bone up toward the belly. Bring the arms forward, straighten. Back to the top of the mat, quadruped. Left foot steps through. High lunge, tuck the right toes, lift up. Keep that right knee bent so we can keep that feeling of the broom behind our back. Drawing those pelvic points in, wrapping that right glute down toward the heel to really open up the front of this right hip. Reach the arms up, reach your fingertips up, reach your shoulder blades up. Left hand comes to the sacrum. Side bend pulses. You're going to really lift that right shoulder blade up. Lift and take this side bend over toward the left, back to center, side bend to the left, stretch the right side of the body, back up, 2 more, side bend, back up, last one, side bend, back up, lower that right hand, turn toward the side of your mat, squat. Check that feeling of the broom behind your back, touching the back of your skull, shoulder blades, and sacrum. Glutes stay really active. Make fists, bring your arms forward. Now really focus on your shoulder blades. Pull the elbows back, squeeze those shoulder blades in without anything changing in the front of the body. Fists come forward. Draw the elbows back, knit those front ribs in as you squeeze the shoulder blades together. Good, reach those fists forward, 2 more, elbows pull back. Squeeze the shoulder blades together, lift the pubic bone up, 1 more. Elbows come back, squeeze those shoulder blades in. Bring the fists forward, straighten your legs, plant the hands, quadruped. Either take cat-cow or head to downward dog. 2 breaths here. If you're in down dog, lift those front ribs up, draw those pelvic points in. Pubic bone lifts to the belly button. Walk your feet forward, hinging at your hips, bent knee forward fold, knees over the ankles. Think about that broom behind your back as you rise to stand. Lift the shoulder blades. Good, release your arms down. We're gonna step our right foot back, warrior 2. Right toes turn toward the side of the mat, left knee bends. Think again about that broom behind your back. Back of the skull, shoulder blades and sacrum all in one line. Squeeze your glutes. We're gonna reach the arms out. And again, we're gonna focus on the shoulders. So we're gonna externally rotate the shoulders, which will make the palms flip up a little bit, and then head back to that neutral position. Externally rotate the shoulders, which makes the palms flip, and back down. So you're just gonna keep doing this. Make sure the movement is coming from the shoulder and not just flipping the wrist. So we don't wanna just feel it near the hands. We really wanna work the shoulders here. So they might even start to get a little bit warm because the effort is really coming from the top of the shoulder. To externally rotate, and then back to neutral. So externally rotating our shoulders is something most of us need to work a little bit more on. For that same reason, we always work shoulders and scapula, because so much of our time is spent rounding forward that even getting to a neutral position seems really hard. Keep the palms down, hold those squeeze in the glutes, hold that upright pelvis, reverse your warrior, right arm comes down. So we want to get this nice lateral stretch, this side body stretch along the left side of the body and left side of the ribs. Back to warrior two. Left forearm to your thigh, right arm up and over. Think about lifting up into this right side of the ribs. Squeeze that right glute. Back to warrior two. Reverse, let the head relax, draw those pelvic points in. Warrior two, last one, forearm to your thigh, right arm up and over. Try to lift your left ribs away from that left thigh. Back to warrior two. Release your arms, straighten that left leg, parallel the feet, turning toward the side of your mat. Hold that neutral pelvis, drawing those pelvic points in. Bend into that right knee. Now we're going to side lunge. So I want you to think about bringing your belly or your torso toward the right thigh without your right knee moving forward. So we need to send that right hip crease back. Pause here, press into that left pinky toe. Lift the pubic bone toward the belly. Bring one hand to the back of your skull, one hand to the sacrum. Lift your belly up into the hand at your sacrum. Side lunge to the left. Good, nice and slowly, side lunge to the right. Really focus on your alignment, keeping everything in that neutral position. Pelvic points draw in, front ribs knit in, spine is long and neutral, neck is neutral, so we're not letting it drop. Good, stand up, release your hands, step to the top of your mat. Left foot steps back, warrior two. Check that pelvic bowl. Let's check the plumb line, fingers to the ears. Without popping the ribs, draw the elbows back, knit the front ribs in, lift the pubic bone up, keep the shoulders where they are, release the arms. Good, reach the arms out. Working the shoulders again, we're gonna externally rotate the shoulders, lifting the palms, and then settle to neutral. Good, keep going, and really feel the shoulders do the work and not just flipping the palms. So you want to feel it from the upper arms. This is one of those things that when you pay attention to where the movement is initiating, it might be a little bit harder than you think, and you might be able to move a little bit less than you think because we're not compensating. We're keeping our posture. We're thinking about all that neutral position and working the shoulders. Good, bring the palms down. Hold the low body the same, reverse it. So we want to stretch the right side of the ribs. See if you can reach that right shoulder blade up even more. Let the left ear release to the shoulder. Warrior two. Variation, forearm to your thigh, left arm up and over. Now try to lift that left shoulder blade up toward the ear as you squeeze that left glute. Back to warrior two. Reverse it. Draw those pelvic points in, knit those front ribs together. Warrior two, last one, variation. Forearm to the thigh, left arm up and over. Let the right ear release. Lift the pubic bone toward the belly button. Back to warrior two. Straighten that right leg, turn toward the side of the mat, side lunges. Bend into that left knee. Now we don't want the knee to go forward. We want that left hip to move back. So we're flexing or hinging at the hip. Bend that left knee. Think about your hips moving back, 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 like you're gonna sit on something really low to the ground. Lift the pubic bone toward the belly. One hand to the back of the skull, one hand to the sacrum. And really imagine that broom behind your back as you switch. Bending into the right knee. Right hip crease moves back, back, back. Lift the pubic bone toward the belly. Move side to side at whatever pace you'd like, where you can still focus on your alignment. So we don't want to move so big or so fast that we forget what our body should be feeling. So we're really going for that neutral posture, keeping that tone in the core, using the glutes as we move the hips. Come back up, step it back to the top of your mat. We'll come to tree pose with our arms in that goalpost shape. So we'll pick up our right foot. We're gonna flex the hip first. So squeeze this left glute. We're gonna stand on the left leg, flexing the right hip. So again, that's the ability to bring the thigh toward the belly or belly toward the thigh without any changes happening in the pelvis or the spine. From this flex position with the right hip, we're gonna externally rotate it out to the side. So again, it might not move very far. We don't wanna move so far that the whole pelvis turns. So we wanna keep those two pelvic points facing forward as we plant that right foot for tree. It can come onto the ground, anywhere on the leg, but really squeeze this left glute. Just like in that low lunge, we wanna feel like we're wrapping it down toward the heel as we lift the pubic bone up toward the belly. Goalpost your arms. Without popping the ribs, maybe start to draw those forearms back a little bit. Lift the elbows up. Now you can hold here or bring the arms up, pull them down into that goalpost shape. If this is too much to think about, just hold that goalpost shape. If not, we'll work the upper back a little bit more. So they always kind of go together, working the back body to open the front body, and vice versa. We need to strengthen the back of the body so that we're not so tight in the front of the body by rounding forward. Keep squeezing that left glute, drawing those pelvic points in. Good, release your arms, release that right foot, shake out the left foot. Switching sides, stand in that mountain pose. Flex that left hip, squeeze your right glute. Externally rotate without the pelvis rotating to the left. Plant it for tree anywhere it lands. Lift the pubic bone up, draw those pelvic points in. Goalpost your arms. Draw the elbows back a little bit, but really keep that feeling of zippering up from the pubic bone all the way to the sternum. Stay here or add that extra movement, lifting the arms up, back to that goalpost shape. And again, feel this in the scapula. Feel the shoulder blades do the moving up and then pulling back down. So it's a little bit harder than it looks when we're really using those upper back muscles. Opening the front of the chest and shoulders as we strengthen the back body. Keep squeezing that right glute. Release the arms, release that left leg, shake out the right foot. We'll come back to the ground for cat-cow. Move through any type of cat-cow that feels good. You can move side to side in any way. You can make some circular movements. Anything that feels good to release any tension you might be feeling. Make your way onto your back, and we'll set up on our back, checking that triple S. Back of the skull, shoulder blades, and sacrum. Bring your hands to your pelvic points. Let's do those pelvic tilts again. Tip the pelvis forward so the low back's gonna lift up, and then really press the sacrum down, almost as if you're about to lift up for bridge, so we're curling the tailbone under. Good, tip forward, lift that low back up, and then tilt backwards as if you're curling the tailbone up. Good, tip forward, to backwards. And then find that happy medium. Sacrum is down, shoulder blades are down, back of the skull. Right foot flexes, cross it over the left thigh. Stay here if this feels like a good stretch for that right hip, or goal post your arms again, lifting the elbows up a little bit, holding those shoulder blades on the ground, maybe picking up that left foot. If you want, do a little rocking side to side. Release that left foot down, then the right foot. Check that the sacrum is down. Pick up the left foot, cross it over the right thigh. Stay here, or pick up that right foot. As you're in this stretch, keep drawing those pelvic points in. Keep your triple S down. If it feels good, you can rock side to side. Release that right foot down, then the left foot. Relax your arms anywhere you'd like. Set up for your Shavasana. Take any option that feels the most relaxing right now. Let your eyes close. Unclench your jaw. Soften your forehead. Come back to whatever your natural breath is. Notice how your body feels right now. Stay in your Shavasana as long as you'd like.